listen to what he's got to say. And thank you for giving us opportunity. The long and short of it is we have two companies. Floors for Pros sells materials to contractors and professionals in the trade. 24/7 Floors owns the installation company. So if you need one or both, we can service you. I have gotten in the last couple of months since my presentation, a couple of you who've given us the opportunity to take care of your clients. And both of those people have given me multiple referrals as of now. And so the long and short is that I will save you money. I will do better service than what you're probably used to. I guarantee it because I'm the one operating the companies and backing all of the jobs. And whatever you're doing now, just reach out. I'm more than an open book. Vinyl plank, carpet, any type of hard surface flooring, repairs, installation, we do it all. And given the opportunity, I think I can make you guys a little bit more money or save you some money and make you look great in front of your clients, which is probably equally, if not more important. So you can reach out to me at my cell, 860-250-1733. Text or call me and I will get back to you. You can email me, Scott@floors, the number 4, pros.com, Scott@floorsforpros.com, and I will follow up on any one of your leads. And again, I'm an open book. If there's anything I can do for you in the way of flooring, supply, installation, or so on, I'm happy to do it. John, I thank you for inviting me into this group and becoming a platinum sponsor. And by the way, I want to give John a big hand. He is tireless at helping the affiliates, and I appreciate that. I see good effort. And he's an amazing guy. Congrats the show today, guys.
Thank you, Scott. And then of course we have, actually, do we have any other affiliates on board, Jody?
I do not see any others on our call today.
No problem. Well, in the event also, we have Harry Heist with Heist, Weiss and Woke, is also a platinum sponsor. Thank you for helping us out, Harry, with this important information. Lightning Restoration of Sarasota is also a platinum sponsor. Sorry, I'm at a loss for words. I'm thinking about Harry Heist. Harry, do you want to say a little something about your firm?
Oh, that's okay. You could use the time.
Okay. Well, it's no problem for me. We're the Lightning Restoration of Sarasota is the property damage restoration company based out of Sarasota, Bradenton area. We service all of Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte counties. We also have other offices that can cover Lee County, Hardy County, Polk County, Osceola, Orange. There's about 19 counties across the state that we do cover. For any of your mold, water, or fire damage restoration needs, you can give us a call. I did put my contact information in the chat. I'll be happy to post Scott's contact information in the chat as soon as I'm done with this introduction period, and reach out to them, property managers, if you have any questions about that. We will also be doing a virtual business card drawing. So get interactive with the chat. If you want to enter into the drawing, we'll do what we can to try to figure out, get a prize winner for each one. Obviously, it's just going to be Lightning Restoration and Floors for Pros doing a drawing. So there'll be 2 prizes given away. I'll have a $50 Visa gift card, and Scott Perone has a gift card to a restaurant of some sort. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, actually, I will offer up 2 $50 gift cards today for Napole Restaurant down south of Stickney Point. Phenomenal Italian restaurant.
Okay, great deal. In addition to that, that's our platinum sponsors. We do have our gold sponsors. One of them is Second Nature. Second Nature, Shannon. If you guys need any contact information for our affiliates, feel free to go to the NARPM website to be able to find all the affiliates, links to their websites and everything else that are there. We also have Ties 360. Ties 360 is a full service air conditioning company as well as air duct cleaning company. And they also service the immediate Sarasota, Bradenton area. And then we also have Service Master, SRQ. Chris Whitaker with Service Master. He's doing a lot of things. I talked to him yesterday. He's actually expanding his office up to Mobile because he's seeing the benefit of having to help out many homeowners up in the Mobile area, Pensacola, that suffered damage from these hurricanes recently. Storm Roofing, you got Rob Nemeth. He's our affiliate contact with Storm Roofing and Repair. Of course, they're a full service roofing restoration company, repair contractor as well. Scott, I believe, just got his general contractor's license. So he's able to work with, I think he's just started another division with Storm Roofing called Storm Construction. So reach out to him as well. And then, of course, don't forget our last but not least, our silver sponsor, Total Coatings. They are a bathtub and shower refinishing company. They can restore any bathrooms. If you've got old rentals and just worn out bathtubs, you want to have them repainted or something like that, Total Coatings is the company for you. And that's all I have for the affiliates. Jody?
Awesome. Thanks, John. So yeah, just to recap, guys, if you can put your name and perhaps the company that you're with in the chat, it'd be nice for us to kind of get to know you and know who we have on the call with us today, since we don't get the opportunity to actually network face to face. It's always nice to know who we have and who we're attracting to these type of events. One thing I wanted to mention is that we are having a membership drive for today's event. So anyone who does decide to become a NARPM member today will get $50 off of their membership. So if you do go online to fill out that membership, you can put in the code Sarasota and you'll get the $50 discount. If you do have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to myself. I will put my contact details in our chat as well. Okay, so without further ado, we will move on to our main event, to Harry Heist, and he'll be talking to us today about the CDC Memorandum, the evictions, notices, and more. So those of you that don't know Harry, he is a wealth of knowledge. So if you don't know him, get to know him. His company is Heist, Weiss, and Wolk. He can be found at evict.com with loads of videos and information to help you run your business. So Harry, I will turn it over to you. Thank you so much for doing this for us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me do it for you today. I'm honored that that you asked. Thanks to everybody else for tuning in. I know people are getting sick of doing Zoom, and I have dreams sometimes where I see people in little boxes, and it's just I get it. So this stuff is kind of important today. So I'm glad that you are taking the time to listen to what we're going to talk about today. Before I get moving, I just wanted to mention something about NARPM, and I want to tell you something a little bit about my own history. I started in 1989. That's when I came to Florida, and I did my very first eviction in 1989. And for some crazy reason, it just ended up that my business would be working for property managers, multifamily managers, single family managers. And my entire life now for the last 31 years has been dedicated to working for property managers. And while I love working for multifamily, my real passion is working for single family managers, because single family managers are owners in a way. Most of them have their own portfolio. They are growing. The more they work, the better they work. The smarter they are, the bigger they're going to get. And it's exciting working for a business where you're working for owners, so to speak, rather than employees, because there's a huge difference in the whole mindset and everything else. So 89, I started. There was no NARPM in Florida. There were no associations in Florida for property management, except for the Apartment Association. And they have been around for a very long time, and they're very, very great associations, very successful. Then, of course, we had the local association of realtors, boards of realtors as well. But there were no real property management associations in Florida. Then in about 1992 or 93, one of my clients, John McVetti, he came to me and he said, Harry, I want to tell you about this association. And when I first heard about it, I'm like, well, I don't know anything about it. You know, I wasn't really that interested. But he started telling me about it, how, no, it's really growing. And it's the top property managers in the United States are joining up. And he started telling me about all the different things that he was learning. And this is a pretty smart guy to begin with, but he's telling me all about that. So I said, all right, I'm going to give it a try. So I joined NARPM. Since that time, since NARPM got to Florida, and since NARPM chapters started to build around Florida, I have watched an incredible change in the way property management is done. It's totally different today. People are more serious about it. They're doing it as a real career. A lot of them are making a lot more money doing it. There's all kinds of things that they've learned over all these years. And pretty much all of it's attributable to NARPM. If you're not a NARPM member, you're missing out. It's something like $280. And I think if you join today, they give you that discount of $50. So I don't know the exact amount, but it's a ridiculously small amount of money to be a member of an association where almost all the top property managers in the state of Florida, almost all of them are NARPM members. It's very hard to find a successful property manager in Florida who is not a NARPM member. So that should tell you something right there. And then the beauty of that is not only you're surrounded with all the knowledge and the networking from other NARPM members, but you also have the affiliates, like you just heard some of the names today with John Rutherford, Lightning Restoration, people that have been around for a long time that you could trust. One of the biggest issues in property management is having affiliates work for you that you could trust, because you are hiring them, your owner's out of state in most cases, and you need to be able to operate properly. You need people who you could trust. And you know how it is. It's very, very difficult to trust HVAC people. It's difficult to trust people who do water restoration. And it's hard to trust these people. And if you've dealt with any of them over the years, you know what I'm talking about. But the ones that are members of NARPM and they've been here a long time as well, those are the ones that understand your business. And I think that's what makes an affiliate much, much better and sets them apart from anyone else. When they know you, when they understand your business, when they understand the interaction between you and the owner and the tenant, everything changes. Everything changes. It's completely different. And if they're good, they stick around NARPM. If they're bad, you don't hear from them much after a little while. So it's a really good way to find the people that are great. And John Rutherford, I got to just give him a thanks. I'm a member of every NARPM chapter, have been for a million years. And I could tell you that John Rutherford, of all the affiliates that I know at the current time, John Rutherford is the most active affiliate in NARPM in the Sarasota Bradenton chapter, and he has done so much to keep the chapter moving forward, to help out with the affiliates, to help out with speakers and sponsors and all kinds of great things. So I want to give a shout out to him, him and his company, Lightning Restoration. There's very, very few people step up to the plate like that and stay for such a long period of time. I've seen people come and go, but not John. He's been around for a really long time. Now,
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, John. Let's dive in now to our topic because we don't have much time. I'm going to move kind of fast. We're going to try to cut through the chaos of the last 8 months. The main problem a property manager faces right now is non-payment of rent. That's pretty much the main issue that you're dealing with right now when it comes to a legal problem. It's that simple. Today, we're going to cover what you can and you can't do right now. We're going to talk about the 3 different types of evictions, but more importantly, I'm going to talk about eviction alternatives. You know, I'm at the point in my life where if I can help you not have an eviction, I'm not even going to feel it. I've done over 100,000 evictions. I don't even know if we do evictions for certain people because we do so many, but we only make less than 50% of our income comes from evictions. I make my money preparing leases for property managers and doing some other stuff, but evictions, I want you to cut down on your evictions. And you're going to notice something. NARPM members have very few evictions. Now, why is that? Why? Well, there's a number of reasons. First of all, they know how to screen. They know they're picky in the very beginning. They know what they're doing. But what they really know is they know about eviction alternatives, eviction avoidance techniques. And I'm going to tell you a lot about that stuff, even though it doesn't help me make any money, but I don't care. You need to learn how to avoid evictions, especially now. In the past, yeah, you still should try to do everything you can to avoid evictions. But now, oh yeah, this is where we really need to learn how to avoid them. And I'm going to talk a lot about that today. So we're going to talk about that last resort evictions, but we're going to get deeper into what the current climate is and what you can and can't do. For some of you, this stuff might be new. Some of it might be old news, a couple months old. Some of you heard about what I'm going to talk about. You heard about it 2 months ago, but something changed in the last 2 months. So it's very, very important to keep up with this stuff. I deal with probably 150 to 200 emails a day, just coming to me, because we answer questions for free. So it's nonstop. I'm like the unofficial legal hotline for property managers. So questions are coming in all day long. And what I see is scary, because I see property managers who don't know what the law is right now, and they have acted a certain way because they thought a certain thing, and they've cost their owners money. They've cost that owner, who thankfully lives far away and doesn't see what's going on here. They've cost them a lot of money, and it's because they weren't keeping up with things. They didn't have the proper information. They were reading things in the newspaper. They're reading things on the internet. They were watching things on TV, and they're just plain dead wrong. So that's what we're going to cut through today. I'm going to give you the real information, the true stuff. Legal aid is out there educating your tenants. So your tenants are getting education, and then we also have the internet and all the social media where your tenants are getting information. And often that information is partial information. And when you hear partial information, it could really make you do something or not do something because you relied on that partial information. And we know we can't believe things we hear. What we watch on TV, what we see on the internet, we can't believe stuff right away. We always have to dig deeper and find out what's really going on. So the first thing we're going to do is a quick review of what we were dealing with. First of all the orders, all the things that we've been dealing with over the past 8 months or so, all of that stuff had to do with evictions for non-payment of rent. Evictions for non-payment of rent. And some of you thought that it applied to all evictions, but it didn't. That stuff applied to evictions for non-payment of rent. That was mistake number one. Everybody thought, oh, we can't file an eviction. Our hands are tied. We're going to have to sit here and wait and just lose more and more money. Well, that was not true. It's about evictions for non-payment of rent. Prior to COVID hitting, evictions were at their lowest level in my 31 years, the absolute lowest level. Rents were at their highest level. Delinquency was at its lowest level ever in my history. When COVID hit, what happened was wild projections were made by some special interest groups. Legal aid, the legal services, they have their own special interest group, and that's to provide legal services for certain people, for the poor, for people who are handicapped, all kinds of, you know what legal services does. Well, legal services, they jumped on this whole thing, of course, because a lot of people are being affected. And so projections started to be made as to what was going to happen. There was a huge projection that we were going to have 36% unemployment. 36% unemployment. There was another projection that we were going to have millions upon millions of evictions were going to be filed. So what did the government do? Well, the government acted on those predictions. They acted on them. And they then threw us these different orders, these laws that we have to operate under. Well, none of the projections came true, and hopefully they won't. The eviction tsunami never occurred. Eviction rates are not off the charts, even now that evictions can be filed and have been filed since August 1st, nonstop. But it created a knee-jerk reaction by the government, who decided to create broad, confusing things that you all had to deal with, all of you. The CARES Act, that was the big one at first. And that impacted certain non-payment evictions in certain properties. It had to do with federal funding, some kind of federal connection, FHA, whatever. If it was connected to the federal government, the CARES Act created a problem if you wanted to file a non-payment of rent eviction. Then what happened? Then came along the state. The state of Florida had an executive order, and that also impacted landlords, and it impacted all of them, not just federally connected, everybody. Every single landlord, every single rental property in Florida, every single tenant was protected by the orders, the state orders. Now we have these orders. We got a federal one, we have a state one. Well, what do you think the judges did? Even though these orders only affected non-payment of rent, a lot of the judges, they just threw up their hands and they said, we don't understand this stuff. We are so confused. The sheriff's department's so confused. We're scared. And you have to understand, a judge is the one who signs the final judgment. A sheriff is the one who kicks someone out of their house. And they were scared. They were confused, scared. We were also confused. A lot of us were, everybody was confused. So what they did is they basically stopped everything. So even though the orders were only meant to impact non-payment of rent evictions, almost all evictions were negatively impacted and from the property managers and landlords' standpoint. So now, here we are, November. We don't have to worry about the CARES Act. We don't have to worry about the state order, but we have this thing that came out from the CDC. And it's big, but it's not as big as some of you think. And that's what we're going to cut through today. When the CDC order first hit, and that was, I believe, September 4th, when the CDC order first hit, everybody thought that we can't file non-payment of rent evictions, because that's, if you read the order, that's what you will get. If you read it, even if you read it line by line, you're going to come back and say, we can't file non-payment of rent evictions if the tenant serves us with this paper. The tenant has to serve us with some form, a declaration. So when the order first came out in September, everybody freaked out. They're like, oh no, first of all, people thought we couldn't file evictions for non-payment of rent. That was not true. Other people said, well, that means we can't file evictions. If the tenant gives us this declaration thing, this paper, we can't file evictions. So that's how we all felt for a few weeks. Then something happened. Something happened. And I'll tell you about that in a second. Before I go on to that, I want to tell you about some good news. Rental assistance money. It's still out there. There's tons of money out there, millions and millions of dollars. The eviction tsunami, as I said, it didn't occur. So you do have options and you can do things right now that you couldn't do before. The bad news is that some of you have tenants who are completely taking advantage of the situation, and the few tenants you have that aren't paying the rent maybe have not paid their rent for months. So we're talking deep delinquency, And so that's very, very bad. All right, let's move along. Back to the CDC order. So we got some good news, we got some bad news, but now we got the CDC order, and we have to understand this. You got to understand this. Otherwise, you're doing your owners a serious disservice. I'll give you an example of a disservice. I have people emailing me and they say, Harry, I got a tenant. They haven't paid rent in 5 months. I'm like, okay, have you given the 3-day notice? And they say, yes, we did. And then I'll look at it and I'll see it's a month to month. And I'm like, and my question is, why didn't you non-renew them? Why didn't you non-renew them? I could have filed an eviction against them 4 or 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And you know what they all say to me? What do you think they said? They say, we thought we couldn't. We thought we couldn't. Well, you were wrong. You were wrong. Dead wrong. And now who suffered? Well, you suffered a little bit, but who really suffered? Your owner. The owner of your property suffered because you did not know that, number one, the law only applied to non-payment of rent evictions. And number two, it's dumb to file a non-payment of rent eviction when you have a month-to-month tenant that you could non-renew. And non-renewals aren't covered by these laws. So you see, that's a huge mistake. And hopefully a lot of you didn't make that mistake. But you've relied on a lot of misinformation. Most NARPM members didn't. Most NARPM members didn't rely on that misinformation because we were doing classes. People from NARPM were doing classes. You had information from day one. So there you go. Just that alone should tell you. The CDC order, September 4th. The CDC order is what we care about right now. And the big word that all of you need to understand is the word declaration. Declaration. We're going to review what it is and what you can and you can't do if you receive one. We're also going to talk about the 3 types of evictions: non-payment of rent, non-renewal, and non-compliance. First of all, is there an eviction moratorium right now? No, there is not. So when you hear that word, get it out of your mind. There is no eviction moratorium. There's a CDC order that impacts evictions in certain situations. You've got to know that. But that word moratorium is a big word. That's a hard word. When you hear that, what do you think? You hear stop. What more serious word can there be than moratorium? Everything is stopped. Everything's on hold. It's not true. That was misunderstanding number 1. So let's just try to get that out of your head. And unfortunately, a lot of the public still has that in their head. And hopefully you haven't made those mistakes that I just talked about. Those errors cost your owners big money. So there we go, September 4th. We get this order. The order hits, and like I just told you before, at first, by reading the order, we all thought we cannot file evictions for non-payment of rent, because that's basically what it said. But then the big thing happened. There's a lawsuit called Brown versus Azar, and it's the National Multi-Housing Council, the National Apartment Association, National Association of Realtors. They're involved in this lawsuit, and it's called Brown versus Azar. Azar. This is a big lawsuit against the government, challenging the CDC order. So there they go. They filed this lawsuit a couple months ago. As soon as it came out, they came together and they filed this lawsuit. They said, in the lawsuit said, this CDC order is unconstitutional because it is keeping us from access to the court. One of the principles in law is, and in the Constitution, is our access to the legal system. If you don't have access to the legal system, then what can you do, right? Your hands are tied. So that's a big, big deal in the United States, is that we have access to the courts. Well, the plaintiff in the case said, this CDC order takes away our access to the courts because we can't file an eviction. Check it out. The attorneys for the government, they filed an answer to what was filed by the plaintiffs. And the attorneys for the government, representing the CDC, the government, the attorneys said, no, that's not what this order means. The order doesn't mean you can't file an eviction for non-payment of rent. The order just means that you can't have a tenant removed for non-payment of rent if they give you this declaration form. So that changed a lot of things, because here we are, all of us, all the attorneys in the whole United States, we're like, oh, wow, this really stinks. We can't, there's nothing we can do. We can't file an eviction for non-payment of rent if the tenant gives us this declaration. But when the government answered in that lawsuit, the government attorneys cleared it up. We can file evictions for non-payment of rent, even if we receive the declaration. We're going to get to that declaration in a minute. So there is no prohibition on filing evictions for non-payment of rent. There is none. And that was made clear by the government. So that was really good news, because without that lawsuit, we would not have gotten that news. So now we have it in black and white in writing from the government that we can file evictions no matter what. We can file evictions anytime we want. Non-payment of rent, tenant gives you a declaration, tenant's COVID impacted, doesn't make any difference. We still could file an eviction. Now, here we go. That opened up things, that changed a lot of things. It made it 100% clear that we can file a non-payment of rent eviction in any situation, even if the tenant gives us that declaration. We just won't be able to have them removed, physically removed from the property until after December 31st, if they give you this declaration, if the tenant gives you this declaration. So you might be saying, well, some of you get a little confused with that. And if you do, watch the video we have on this. I'm going to send you all a sheet with all kinds of resources. Watch the video, 8 minutes, and watch it a couple of times and you'll get it. So we can file evictions, but if the tenant serves us with this form, this declaration, our hands are tied until December 31st. And that could get worse. We'll get to that at the very end. So let's move back to the three types of evictions: non-payment, non-compliance, non-renewal, holdover. The CDC order, and for some of you who have it implanted in your head, moratorium, applies only to non-payment of rent cases and only in cases where the tenant gives you that declaration. Now, suppose your tenant is month to month, holdover. Let's say they're month to month, you gave them a notice of non-renewal, or the lease is up, you gave a proper notice of non-renewal, now they're holding over. Can you file an eviction? Absolutely. The CDC order doesn't impact that kind of eviction. So that's simple. You could do that. It doesn't have any, and we evict people all day long on non-renewals and holdovers. What about non-compliance? The tenant has unauthorized pets, unauthorized occupants. They're violating the rules of the association. Their lawn is 3 feet tall in the condo association. Can you file an eviction for that? Absolutely. Can the tenant stop that? No, it doesn't matter. The CDC order doesn't affect those types of evictions. It's just non-payment. So the problem we have is that if you're in a non-payment situation, You can file the eviction, but if the tenant gives you that declaration, there's a super high probability that you cannot have the tenant physically remove the writ of possession. That will not happen until December 31st. Now, what is that scary declaration? I keep saying the word declaration. It's that form. It's a written statement by the tenant that says that the tenant used their best efforts to get assistance, that they make less than $99,000 a year, that they're unable to pay the rent, that they have a loss of income, they have less hours worked, whatever, they lost their job. It says they tried their best to make rent payments. It says that they would become homeless or have to live with other people in close quarters if they got evicted. That's what a declaration is. And if you don't know what it is, you should look at it. Go to evict.com, and that's going to take you right to the page with this COVID stuff, and click that thing and you'll see what a declaration is. Everybody should know what a declaration looks like. Very important. If the tenant does not give you this declaration, you have nothing to worry about. You give your 3-day notices, you file your evictions, everything is going to move right through the system. And it is right now in almost every single county. There are some counties that are problematic. In Miami, there hasn't been a writ of possession in months. The mayor in Miami said no writs of possession. But for Sarasota, Manatee, Hillsborough, Charlotte, evictions are moving through right now. So backing up, the CDC order is only meant to impact non-payment of rent evictions, only those types of evictions, and will only impact those evictions if the tenant gives you that declaration. It won't stop you from filing the eviction, but if they give you that declaration, then we got a problem. So let's do a little Q&A. And I'm kind of repeating this to just hammer it home because it is confusing. If you get it right away, then that might mean you don't understand it. So that's why I'm really trying to make you understand it. Because I could tell you don't. When I deal with all these emails every day, I could tell people don't understand it. And I could tell they're not reading, they're not keeping up. Question, can you serve a 3-day notice right now? Yes, absolutely. Can you serve a 7-day notice to cure? Can you serve a notice of non-renewal? Yes. Nothing has changed. Nothing has. In the past, we had problems with that. Not now. You could do anything like serve any notice you want. What about late fees? That's a question I get. Can you put late fees on your notice? Absolutely. Now, if you got somebody who owes you 6 months rent or 4 months rent, I'm going to tell you that it's not wise to put a ton of late fees on that notice. Now, why would I say that? Well, think about it. Number one, are you going to get that money? By giving that notice, are you going to get that money? Doubt it. Doubt it. So you're not going to get that money. Number two, if you do put that crazy late charge, if it's huge on the 3-day notice, if an eviction's filed and the judge sees that, judges don't like that. They don't like that. They don't like it one bit. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. If you got somebody who owes so much money, you know they're not going to pay you, and you want to evict them, ease up on the late charges because you're not going to get them anyway. That doesn't mean they don't owe them. They still owe the late charges, and you still could. They still 100% owe those charges. You still could take it from the deposit if need be, if the lease is written properly. But don't mess up your eviction with a ton of late charges that you're never going to see. In Sarasota County, for some of you who've been in, we got people from all different counties today, but mainly Sarasota and in Manatee. If any of you have been in Sarasota for any length of time, we went through a very long period of time in Sarasota where we had a couple judges that hated you. They hated landlords. And when I say hate, I mean they hated you. Every single eviction was a problem in Sarasota County. And judges are still around that are like that. So you have to understand, not everybody likes the landlord. Now, non-payment of, here's our next question. Can non-payment of rent evictions be filed and served right now? Even if the tenant gives you that declaration? Yes, they can. Will a declaration in that non-payment eviction stop the case? Well, it'll stop it at a certain point, and it'll stop it at the end if they give you that declaration. Will non-payment of rent evictions go through, and will you get a writ of possession, and will you get possession of that house if the tenant does not give you a declaration? And the answer is yes. So without the declaration, you're totally in the clear. With the declaration, you got some issues. Will some tenants give you that declaration and sit back and not pay a dime, and you can't do a darn thing until December 31st? You can't remove them. You can't go to the end. Yes, you got to be able to, you have to understand that, because it's important for you to understand that, because your owners are going to want to, they want to know. Your owners, I'm giving you information, then you're going to bring it to your owner. Sometimes things get lost in that process there. What does the declaration look like? Look at it. I'm going to be sending you a sheet that's got it all on there, but just go to our website. You can press the button and you can see what it looks like. Now, some of you might be saying, Harry, I got a tenant who hasn't paid rent in 3-4 months. Why should I bother filing an eviction? Because the tenant gave me one of those forms. And almost all of you know what I'm talking about. Almost all of you have seen that form. You've gotten that declaration. So here you say to me, you say, why should we even bother filing the eviction? Why should we bother? If I got the form and it's non-payment of rent, isn't it stupid for me to file? Isn't it useless? Only in some ways. And listen carefully on that. It's possible if you don't have a declaration, the tenant you'll file the eviction and everything will go fine. If you do have a declaration, at least by filing the eviction, you're able to get in line and start moving through the system. You're going to get through to almost the end of the eviction. It's not going to get canceled. It's going to be on hold, but it'll be on hold at the end. That's a big difference than starting an eviction from scratch on January 1st. A huge, huge difference. So that's benefit number one of filing now rather than sitting back and doing nothing until January 1st. But here's benefit number two, and this is far bigger. An eviction gets the tenant to act in many cases. What do I mean by act? It often shakes the tenant up. You know what I'm talking about. You've got a tenant who hasn't paid rent for a long time. You send them notices, you send them emails, you send them texts, and they ignore. But the minute they get hit with that paperwork, now you get that phone call, you get that email, and they say, we don't want to be evicted. What could we do? What could we do? So that eviction actually has a lot of benefits because it gets them, it shakes them up a little bit, a lot actually. And it gets the person into the door to now have the opportunity to go through some different paths, down some different paths that I'm going to tell you about. The tenant might say, I want to do a payment arrangement. The tenant might sign an agreement to vacate. We're going to talk about that in a second. The tenant might decide finally to go get the rental assistance funds. So many tenants, if you have no contact with them, they sit back, they don't do anything. What do they care? A lot of people just don't care. They hear the word moratorium, they're sitting there on their couch and they're like, oh, well, you know, I can't be evicted till January 1st. That's what they're thinking, right? And there's all this money, millions of dollars are sitting in the county, sitting in CARES, in the CARES funds, and they don't bother to go get it. A lot of tenants are like that, a lot. It's huge and it's bad. But now you filed the eviction and now we've got something going on now. Now you are going to get some action in a lot of cases. And as I said, there's a lot of that money out there. So there's those options. All of a sudden the tenant says, I don't want an eviction judgment on my record. What could I do? And you say, well, do you have any plans on leaving? And the tenant says, well, yeah, I could leave in 2 weeks or I could leave in 3 weeks. That's when you might say, all right, sign this agreement to vacate, or let's sign the stipulation stating you're to leave in 2 or 3 weeks. So now you just took the case out of a non-payment case and you turned it into a different type of case. Now it's a case where they agreed to leave. During an eviction, they agreed to leave rather than having a final judgment of eviction. Most tenants do not want an eviction on their record. It's far better to have bad credit. It's far better to have some criminal stuff on your record than it is to have an eviction judgment on your record. Most landlords, most property managers do not want to rent to somebody. And a lot of these people who are sitting back doing nothing, they are creating a bad situation for their life down the line. they're making a serious mistake. But at least now you filed it and you got them in the door and you have some options. What about cash for keys? I know that sounds horrible. Cash for keys is horrible. Some of you heard my little story about a year ago or so, just about a year ago. One of my property managers that works for one of my properties, he put a tenant into one of my houses. And within a week or so, I get a phone call from the next door neighbor. And the next door neighbor says, Harry, that lady that just moved into your rental, she's making all kinds of noise, screaming, yelling, fighting. People are coming and going at all hours of the day and night. He says, I don't think she works, but we kind of think she does work, doing something maybe she shouldn't be doing. So I saw the writing on the wall. So I called up my property manager. My property manager says, well, everything checked out. Then I looked her up. I found out that she had been evicted before. I found out that she had a open criminal case against her. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is bad news. I want this lady out. So I told the property manager, give her a 7-day notice to terminate because she lied on her rental application. So he does. Then I get a call from her attorney, the tenant's attorney. The tenant's attorney says, blah, 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 we're going to fight, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, great. I got to deal with this, right? I do evictions for other people. I'm not going to do one for myself. This is going to be a mess. And there's an attorney already poised to fight. So I talked to the attorney. I said, look, here's the deal. And I told him the other side of the story, because you know how it is. An attorney only gets one side of the story in a lot of cases, but he kind of knew what was going on because he was representing her in a criminal action. And I said, if she leaves, I'll give her security deposit back in full, and she could stay for the whole month, no rent. So I gave her till the end of the month. So she had like 3 weeks free. I gave her a security deposit back if she left it without damaging it. And what do you think she did? She left, and you could tell she vacuumed on the way out. It was great. So you see, I didn't have to file an eviction against her. I used a different approach. And this is what you guys need to learn how to do. Learn how to use a different approach. So if you do have to file an eviction, though, there are things you could do. You could do a stipulation. You could tell the tenant, hey, go get some rent money so we could stop this eviction. There's all kinds of things. When you file an eviction, it's not the end of the world. There are things that could happen rather than going to the end of the eviction. You're going to encourage your tenants to get rental assistance, and you should be doing that right now, eviction or not. Keep pushing them. Keep pushing them. Now, the agreement to vacate, that's a beautiful form. They sign, you go up to them and say, hey, what's the deal? I'm ready to file an eviction on you. We can't do this any longer. They say, well, you can't file an eviction. You go, no, we can. You misunderstood the law, Mr. Tenant. We can file an eviction against you. But if you sign on this piece of paper and you leave in 3 weeks, or you say, when could you leave? And they say, I could leave in 3 weeks. Say, if you sign this paper, you leave in 3 weeks, we will not file an eviction against you. Do you know how many times tenants will sign that piece of paper? They do it. Because I told you before, they don't want to be evicted. They don't want that on the record. It's shocking how many tenants are just kind of waiting until they kind of have to get kind of kicked in the butt a little bit. So there you go. You have that option. And we talked about the cash for keys. Sometimes that is the only option and it works. Don't ever underestimate cash for keys. I know it's horrible to think about it. Give somebody money when they owe you 3-4 months rent. That's sickening. But maybe the owner wants to sell the house. Maybe you want to, there's other tenants out there looking for places. The market's still hot. So people are looking for a place to live. And if you get this person out, you're going to be able to get somebody good in right away. So that cash for keys is amazing. You ever look at those commercials? I think you probably see Fusillo Kia, huge. Do you guys have that in Sarasota? I know I have it in my town. They're very annoying. So you got this Kia, this big giant Kia dealership. And now what do? What do they advertise, these dealerships? They get you in, right? They get you in because they're giving you $3,000 cash back. It's shocking how many people who really shouldn't buy a car will go to a dealership and buy a car that for $12,000, and it'll end up costing them $25,000 after 5 years are up, but they'll do it. Why? For that $3,000 cash in their hands. So never underestimate what a tenant might do if you offer cash for keys. And you got to use the right form. Watch the video. I've been referring to videos a little bit. Videos. I have over 250 videos. They're all free. Every one of them. They're on evictv.com. And then I have another list. It's really easy to use. Just email me. I'll send you the whole list. It's nice because it's one place. You don't have to go into the website. You could just look at it. You could organize it. You could do whatever you want. It's in Word. I have videos on how to do cash for keys, how to do payment arrangements. You need to learn how to do these things. If you do them wrong, it could be worse than not doing them at all. And I have problems with that. I see a payment arrangement, it's done all wrong. All right, so you've tried all these methods. You tried agreement to vacate, you tried cash for keys, you tried all these different things. And none of them worked. None of them worked. Tenant didn't get any rent assistance money, nothing worked. Now you got to file the eviction. Before you file that eviction, you need to do some prep work. And I'm going to go through this very quickly. What is some of the prep work before you file an eviction? And listen carefully, because a lot of you are not doing this prep work because we see it. When they come in the office, we see it. It's a strategy. First of all, before you file an eviction, make sure you didn't sign any social services forms where you agreed to get money from a social services agency, you agreed to get some CARES money, and you agreed to hold off on filing an eviction. Always look at what you signed. People come in with a piece of paper, they throw it in front of your face, you take out that pen and you sign it because you figure, I want my tenant to get money, I'm going to sign this thing. And they run off with that piece of paper. You don't realize that you might have agreed to not file an eviction for 2 months. You may have agreed to wait for money that you might not get. So make sure before you file an eviction, check, did I do any social services forms? Watch the video, social services form dangers. And you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. Be careful. The next thing, before you file an eviction, did you do everything you can to try to convince that tenant to get rental assistance? Have you tried everything you can to push that tenant to get rental assistance? You're going to ask that question. So that's question number 2. Do it. Don't just jump into an eviction. Remember, last resort. The next thing, did you make any verbal agreements with the tenant? This is a big one. Any of you have any tenants in this situation? For the last 3 months, they've been giving you a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there. And now, because you know you could file an eviction, you shoot them with a 3-day notice with $7,000 on there, and bang, you hit them with an eviction. Do you know what the tenant can do? That tenant can come to court or write an answer to the court and say, Your Honor, I don't feel like I should be evicted. I thought I had an agreement. And then you're going to be in court. And the judge is going to say, well, did you have an agreement? And you're going to have to say, well, we did have an agreement, but, you know, they weren't following it, blah, blah, blah. Do you see what I'm saying here? If you had any verbal agreements, you need to stop those verbal agreements. You need to use a form we have that basically says, no more. This is it. We're filing. And it gives them a little notice that you're going to take action. So you want to kill any of those verbal agreements that you may have made in the past and that they may have given you some money on here and there. Electronic payments. Oh, man. In some ways, I like the old days. I remember in the ancient days, those old days, the days of this. I remember when the people paid, how did they pay? They paid by check, they paid by money order, and some paid by cash. So if you filed an eviction or if you gave a 3-day notice and they didn't pay, you could refuse the rent money, right? It was very easy to refuse a payment because you knew that if you took money, it would blow the eviction. It would blow the 3-day notice. It would kill it. But how do people pay today? Most people pay today online. And many of you don't have control of what the tenant pays. And I'm dealing with this every day. They're paying a little here, a little there. So you give a 3-day notice for $5,000 and they slip $500 in through the electronic payment system. Well, now what? Your 3-day notice is no good. You have to start over again. Do you see how messy that is? So you need to make sure before you file an eviction, after the 3-day notice expired, did you shut off their ability to pay? Because we can't have money slip in anymore. They can always pay after we file the eviction through the courts, but we need to stop the payments. We can't have tenants slipping in payments, and some tenants know that game. So your verbal agreements come to an end. Everything's done in writing, written payment plans. You're going to make sure that you did them all properly. And then we're going to make sure, did we in any way have a situation where tenant has slipped money in? We don't want money being slipped in. Now, the final thing is repairs. Before you file an eviction, make sure there's no pending repairs. Any of you have this? Did you have this situation over the past few months where the tenant said, I need you to come and repair X, Y, and Z? So you went over, you sent your vendor over, and they wouldn't let them in. They wouldn't let your vendor in. So your vendor couldn't make the repair. Your vendor came back and said, I'm sorry, they won't let us in. Or the tenant says, don't come in. I got a problem, but I don't want it repaired. And you're like, okay, because of the COVID, they didn't want people coming in. They got a 95-year-old grandmother in the house. You could understand that. You get it. I get it. The tenant denied you access. Now you file an eviction, and guess what? Those repairs, they get thrown in your face. The failure to get those repairs done, they get thrown in your face. So go back in your computer and always look before you go to file an eviction. And we ask, when we do the eviction, you go to evict.com, we ask you these questions. If you've ever done eviction through us, you know what I'm talking about. I ask you all kinds of questions. I'm like, has the tenant asked for any repairs to be done? Have things been fixed? Because I know that these things blow up the eviction. They've really derailed the eviction bad. So you're going to check, have we made those repairs? So that's basically it's the strategy. It's a strategy you're going to use before you even think of filing an eviction. Because when you file an eviction, you want to win. The last thing you need is to file a case that may be very problematic, and then have you lose it. And if the tenant gets a lawyer, and never underestimate that. So many of my clients, they'll say, oh, this tenant can't afford a lawyer. This tenant will never get a lawyer. They haven't paid me rent. How could they get a lawyer? Oh man, is that one of the biggest mistakes people make? There are lawyers out there who comb through the court website. They comb through the clerk of court system, and they look for people under eviction, and they send them letters, and they say, we represent tenants. We will give you a free consultation. And then what they do, they'll see a problem with your case, and they'll take the case for free. And then if they win the case or get it blown out of court, your owner can end up having to pay thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, most of you, that hasn't happened to you, but I could show you tons of people where it did. They lost the eviction, and now not only did they lose the eviction, but the owner or you ended up getting a judgment against you because you lost. Read about that. If you don't understand that, you are in dangerous territory. And again, remember, people do not want evictions on their record. Most tenants do not want to be evicted. Now let's move over to forget about non-payment. We got them taken care of, right? That's what we've been talking about. What about holdovers month to month? If a tenant is month to month, the smartest, and you want them out, the smartest thing you can do right now is to non-renew the tenant. That is the absolute smartest thing to do. Why? Because the CDC order doesn't apply to those types of evictions. Forget 3-day notices. If you could non-renew them, non-renew them. That's a smart thing to do. If a lease is coming up to the end, you need to non-renew them. Don't be silly and not non-renew them. Remember, if they're not non-renewed, it doesn't end. So now you're stuck doing a notice of non-payment of rent, but you're like, I don't want the rent. I just want them out. Don't make the mistakes that so many people have been making. Learn how to non-renew. Now, almost every one of you is saying, I know how to non-renew. Oh, really? Do you really think that? If I were to ask a group of people, how do you non-renew a tenant? A bunch of people would raise their hands, and you know what they would say? Oh, you give them a 15-day notice. You give them a 15-day notice. Excuse me? There's no such thing as a 15-day notice. That's wrong. The real answer, what's the real answer? In order to terminate a month-to-month tenancy, you must give a notice of non-renewal at least 15 days prior to the end of the month, the end of the payment period. You got it? That's a big difference. So that means a notice, let's assume payment is due on the 1st. If you gave a notice on the 20th of the month, if you gave a notice today, telling somebody to be out on December 5th, that would be 15 days, right? At least. But would it be proper? No. No. And then here you go. You asked me to file an eviction. I got to tell you, you did your notice wrong. I got people right now sending me over evictions to file. And I'm like, or they're saying, I want to non-renew the people for the end of November. I'm like, you don't have time. You don't have time. We don't have 15 days left in November. If you don't have 15 days left, then you just shot yourself in the foot. So you need to, with all your files, look at them right now. Are they under leases right now? Are they month to month right now? Because and mark the file, because that's going to give you more options. It's silly to file a non-payment of rent case if you could non-renew the tenant. It's going to go through much easier. I've been filing non-renew. I've been kicking people out for non-renewals for months. It's easy. That's what you want to do. And then an important thing is, when you serve a notice of non-renewal, and I've got a video on this, make sure you could prove that you served it. Countless times I go to court and the tenant says, or the tenant files an answer with the court. The tenant says, I never got a notice. I never got a notice from my landlord. And the property manager says, well, yeah, we put it on their door. Hang on, Mr. Property Manager. That's a pretty darn important notice, isn't it? Have any of you ever been non-renewed? I'll never forget one time I used to rent an office, and I remember I raised some hell with the landlord. I was nasty. And you know what he said to me? He said, if you don't like it, we're going to non-renew you. You'll have to leave in 30 days. I was like, whoa. It's the first time in my life it ever came back to hit me. And I was like, I'm thinking, leave in 30 days. This is a big office. I can't do that. But I would have had to. Tenants deny receipt of that notice, and you need to be prepared for that. So you need to serve it in a way where you could prove it. How do you prove it? Bring somebody with you, put it on the door, hand deliver it, then back it up with certified mail, back it up with email. Never use them as your primary ways. You back it up with certified, back it up with email. You need to be able to prove it. Understand how to terminate a lease. This is very important. How do you terminate a lease? The lease is coming up and it's ending at the end of November. At the end of November, can I file an eviction? Probably not. Not if the lease requires notice, and most leases do, right? What does a typical lease require? 30 days, 60 days, right? But I don't have 30 or 60 days before the end of November. So I can't file the eviction on December 1st. You see, because I wasn't looking at my lease, because I wasn't thinking, I just hurt my owner, because now I can't non-renew them until the end of December. So that's a very expensive mistake that you should not be making. Look at your leases, see how much notice needs to be given. People do not have to leave at the end of most leases. Most leases require some notice. Now, next, the other eviction. Got that out of the way. The other eviction, non-compliances. What are non-compliances? Unauthorized pets, unauthorized occupants, whatever. You know what I'm talking about, millions of different things. But you know what some of you are doing right now? You're emailing me or calling me or saying, Harry, I want to get this person out, and they're doing this, they have unauthorized pets, they have unauthorized occupants, blah, 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 blah. You're telling me all these things that they're doing. And you're like, I want to serve them 7-day notice and file an eviction. So then I ask my little questions. I say, well, have they paid the rent? Oh, no, they haven't paid the rent in 4 months. How long have they had the dog there? How long have they had the unauthorized occupants? And they say, oh, they've been in there for months. I got you. I caught you. See, I know what's going on here. You're looking for a reason that you think I'm going to be able to evict them for, a reason that you ignored for months. And now you think all these little things that they're doing wrong somehow add up to a winning eviction. They don't. They don't. You need something serious. How many of you have actually filed non-compliance evictions? How many of you have been to court on non-compliance eviction? Very few of you. You wait till you get one where a tenant denies they have an unauthorized occupant and you need to prove they do. Judges don't want to evict people for stupid little things. Now, under normal times, I can, but not right now, especially if you haven't done anything about it for a long time. The judge knows what you're doing. They could see right through it. I could see right through it, and you know exactly what you're doing. You're trying to evict for non-compliance when the real reason is non-payment of rent. So think about that. It's not as easy as you think. It's much, much harder. So anyway, that pretty much covers most of what I wanted to tell you today. We covered everything that I wanted to get out. And we're going to have some time for questions. And if you want, shoot the questions in the little chat thing or at any time you want. There's never a charge. info@evict.com or harry@evict.com. I'm there 10, 12 hours a day. I'm the guy behind the computer answering those 2 emails. But it's better that you ask a question and get a quick answer than to make a mistake. Now, could all of this crazy stuff change? Could all of this change? We got that one thing that we got the CDC thing. We've got the problems with the court system right now. Could all of this change? Yeah. I'm very, very concerned. I believe in my heart, if I were to bet, If I were to bet, I would drop probably $1,000 on the fact that at some point in time over the next couple months, we're going to see the government institute another eviction ban. And this could be a big ban. We don't know if they're going to do it, but I really think it's going to happen. So we need to be prepared for that. So if you're going to do anything, you better do it now, because after December 31st, or maybe even before December 31st, we don't know if Trump will do another executive order to extend. We don't know what he's going to do. We don't know what Biden's going to do. We have no clue. Be prepared that the information can get a lot worse. And finally, last thing, for a lot of you get annoyed at the law. And you think, oh, the laws are all stacked against us. They're all stacked against the property manager, all stacked against the landlord. No, they're not. Not in Florida, at least. Florida is a very pro-landlord state. But little things are happening on the local level that are impacting you. Little ordinances. In St. Petersburg, we have an ordinance in St. Petersburg that impacts you as a property manager. It impacts late charges. It makes you have to give a special disclosure to your tenants. And if you don't, you have to pay a serious penalty. So what people are doing right now is things are happening on the local level. They're sliding in the town councils and the county commissioners. And you as property managers need to get to know your county commissioners, get to know your city council members, and be more active on the legislative end. Because I can't do it for you. I can help when time comes in some cases, but I can't be in every 500 and some odd municipality, county, and we got 67 counties, municipalities everywhere. Things bad are happening. We had a good ride. The last 30 some odd years have been great for landlords, but things are changing. And that's why it's important to be a member of NARPM, be legislatively active, know what's going on in the city council, know what's going on in the county commission, because you might be the only voice there at the table for the good guy, for the good landlord, because all these laws and ordinances are being put into effect because of the bad landlord, the slumlord. And you need to set yourself apart from the slumlord and let these people who are making our laws, making our rules, let them know you are a good landlord. You're a good property manager. This is what you do. And that you're in favor of getting rid of slumlords. You're in favor of regulation on slumlords, but you're not in favor of regulation on good people who know the law and follow the law. So that's just my little speech for getting out there and becoming active. And I see it work all around Florida. I've seen many times where good things were passed, and many times where bad ordinances were crushed before they made it because somebody was at the table. We got time for questions. We got any questions?
Non-renewal haven't received.
I think somebody's got their mic on.
For non-payment, yes, I see it. Yeah. I have a question.
All right, go for it.
Okay.
Okay, I'm ready.
Who said they had a question? Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Ann.
Yes, so I filed a notice of non-renewal September 14th. The lease expired November the 9th. I haven't received rent in 3 or 4 months. They did give me the CDC form. So now that my lease is expired, can I file something else? Because now the lease is over.
Okay, so you gave a notice in September telling them they had to be out November
The 9th, this lease, we got it and it was, yeah.
That sounds good to me. That sounds like you're ready to roll. Now you have to look at your lease. I don't know if your lease says 60 days are required. I don't know what your lease says, but if your lease, we'll always look to the lease and see how much notice needs to be given prior to the end of the lease. See, because you weren't on month to month. You were non-renewing the lease. Some people, the lease already is over and they're non-renewing the month to month. But it sounds to me, without knowing a thing, it sounds to me like you're ready to rock and roll. You just go ahead and file an eviction.
So I was a couple days off from the 30 days given her, but so it's already past that. Today's the 18th. She's supposed to have been out the 9th.
Right. Well, you gave this person more notice than you had to. You said you gave them notice in September, something saying they have to be out at the end of their lease, which presumably is like sometime in November. It sounds like you gave plenty of notice. sounds like you're in good shape.
But now I did file for eviction of non-payment.
Why?
Well, because they hadn't paid me for 3 or 4 months.
Well,
Prior,
when did you file that case?
the last 30 days. or
Okay, well,
less.
see, I wouldn't have done that. See, I would not have done that. I would have said, wait till the lease, if you gave notice of non-renewal, you wait till the lease is up and then file on that. Because you see, the CDC order does not impact non-renewal evictions. It doesn't impact non-compliance evictions. So you would have been in good shape. And that's what I'm trying to tell people. They'll be sending me cases all day long. They're sending me cases and I see these 3-day notices with massive amounts of money owed. And I'm like, you know, you're really better to non-renew these people. I mean, I'm happy to file the eviction, but I think it's wasteful.
Right.
It's only going to make me money. I think you should, if you could non-renew somebody, that's what you're going to file on. And one of our services that we provide, we prepare leases. We prepare thousands of leases all over Florida every single year. And a lot of our clients, this is what they're doing. They're sending us over the information through the website for the renewal. And they're saying, okay, well, I want to renew this lease. The tenant owes $4,000 and I want you to spread that out over the renewal lease. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me this tenant owes you money on the old lease, but you're going to renew them right now? And they're like, yeah, because they're paying us, we're getting paid. And I'm like, no, don't do that. Don't renew leases if there's money owed. Don't.
I would not do that. No, I use your leases, but this is a lease. We kind of bought a house and got it. So
yeah, well, you got to look at the lease carefully. Yeah.
But now, can I file, even though I already filed for non-payment, can I now file for non-renewal? I mean, or to get them out, or no? I'm stuck.
You can't have 2 evictions going at once. You would have to kill the first one, or maybe you can amend. You could possibly file an amended complaint. I don't know. I don't know anything about the case, so I don't want to give you any bad advice.
Right. Okay.
Awesome. Okay, Harry, we got a question in the chat from Cole. He says, Harry, who do you recommend we tell the tenants to contact for getting rental assistance?
All right. Depends what county you're in, obviously. In Tampa Bay, the Bay Area Apartment Association gives out a list, must be 10 different places to get money. If let's make believe you're in Sarasota, you would go to Gulf Coast, you would contact Gulf Coast Legal Services, go to their website. Charlotte County?
Yeah.
Okay, well, they don't have a legal aid office in there, but you're going to call up the county. You're going to go to their website. The easiest way, you search CARES. That's what you do. Search CARES. And CARES will go CARES, Charlotte County. And then that will bring you into the website that talks about the rental assistance, this assistance, that assistance, whatever. And then you want to try to push your tenant. And just, it's communication so important. Talk to your tenant. Say, hey, look, I don't want to evict you, but I'm going to have to. It's going to mess you up for years, maybe more than 10 years. Get the money. Help me out here. Just be careful. You don't make a promise to your tenant. Don't ever tell your tenant that you're going to hold off on something unless you really are. Because you remember I talked about those verbal agreements. You don't want the tenant to say, well, he said he would work with me and now all of a sudden I get hit with paperwork. So do your best. I'm telling you, there's money out there. It's still gazillions out there.
Awesome, guys. Have any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up or put anything in the chat. Well, Harry, it seems like you gave us enough information that we don't have many questions.
Well, that's good. I've done this class I've done for the different NARPM chapters. Probably, I think I'm on my 5th time. So I try to, every time we got a question, I tried to cover it. So maybe either you got really bored and you hated it, or I covered the question that you had. But if you're shy or something and you still have a question, you don't want to do it publicly, just email me or go to the website and look at the information there. Just get the information you need.
I have one more question, if you don't mind. What do you think about the idea of making all leases month to month right now?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. You mean if you start somebody out month to month, if somebody walks in your door and they want to rent from you and you start them out month to month, so that it's not a renewal, they haven't never lived there, they're brand new tenants month to month. If you do that, you have to collect sales tax, tourist tax, local tax. It's treated as a seasonal. But if you have somebody on a lease now and the lease is getting ready to be renewed, if you don't feel comfortable about this person, if you think that if the payment history was spotty, or if you think something bad is going on, I would not renew them right now. I would not. I'd leave them on month to month. I wouldn't non-renew them. I would just leave them on month to month. And if they're bad news, then of course I would non-renew them. But now a new lease right now on somebody who's who has obvious financial problems or looks like they're going to, just keep them on month to month. Keep your options open.
What about a new lease if we do 7-month leases or 6 months and 1 day? I mean, I'm just trying to make it so we don't have to pay sales tax, but then we always keep it open. And who knows what the government's going to impose.
Here's the problem. If the government extends this, which, like I said, I really expect it's going to happen. If the COVID numbers keep going up, there's no reason to believe that they will not extend this. If the government extends this, most likely, at least hopefully, they're going to still limit it to non-payment of rent cases. So if you don't have a lease, or if you do a month-to-month agreement, which could be a written agreement, it could be an addendum, whatever. If you do that, your options are open. Even if the government does extend it, hopefully not broaden it, but just extend it, then if you don't get rent, you'll be able to file a non-renewal eviction. So it just doesn't make sense to lock yourself into a lease, which then puts you under the CDC order, and then the tenant has protection. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, one last opportunity. Anyone else?
This is Kathy. I would just like to say I am really surprised that more agents didn't get on and listen to Harry. This was a very eye-opening conversation that he had, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry that all of my agents weren't on there, except for 2.
Well, one good thing, Kathy, is that we do have this being recorded. So we will be sending it out afterwards. So if you want to share it with your agents, feel free to do that. That would be great. And then, like Harry said, he has some documents that he's going to send over, and I'll be sure that we get them dispersed out to all of you guys for that. Yeah, so the documents, the recording, just a reminder about membership. So if you guys wanted to join today, remember it's $50 off. We also are always looking for new volunteers for our board. So if you want to come along to a board meeting, if you're interested in maybe co-chairing or chairing a committee within the board, we're always welcome to that. So feel free to reach out to me, or I may, I've jotted down some names today, and I may stalk you to ask you to join in any case. So, but Harry, thank you so much for your time today and for your wealth of knowledge as always. And I think just to kind of wrap it up, John, did we come up with a solution on how we were going to do a drawing, or are we still working on that?
I believe we've got, Scott, do you have 2 winners that you've picked?
I do. Pulled a couple. I wrote all the names down. So I pulled John Goodbrad and Lisa Verano. So those are the 2 winners. You have to contact me. I will get you the gift certificates for the restaurant, and you will love it. I promise. You love Italian food. This is the place to go.
Sounds good, Scott. So Lisa and John, if you can, I put Scott's contact information in the chat. Feel free to contact him directly, email, phone numbers, whatever information that you choose to use there. And he'll be able to get in touch with you and get together to get your gift cards to you. And as far as for me, I had chosen Eric from Oakleaf Property Management. Eric, are you still with us? Is he out there?
Yes, I am.
All right, Eric, there you go. There you go. So just send me your contact information directly, Eric, and I'll be happy to get in touch with you and get a gift card over to you as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. All right, that's all we have.
Thank you, John. Again, thanks to Harry. Thanks to all of you for joining and participating. I know it's unconventional times right now, so I appreciate you guys taking time from your businesses and coming and hearing this, all of this educational information that Harry can provide to us. So thanks again, Harry, and take care, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Harry.
Thank you.
Harry.
Take it easy. Take care, Pete.
Thanks, Harry.
No need to stay on.